Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Good afternoon to you all. Good morning to others. Good evening to others indeed. Hello, hello. It is so great to see you on this almost spring, not quite spring day. We are
Almost.
getting there. We are getting there. Things are on the horizon. Possibility is we might be looking at possibility this year. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Great to see you. Thanks for coming to our Ask Me Anything session, AMA. Yes, I love seeing you guys. John is here. Please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. I got all my Johns in the house. I got my sweet John Bellimer, as well as John with the dog on his couch, and I am a super fan. Hello, Todd. Great to see you again. Thanks for coming. We got Candace back. We got Mercedes. It's so good to see you. Hey, Steven. Hi, hi, hi. Hi to Randy. Welcome, welcome to Adrian. Great to have you all with us. Emma, thanks for being here. Okay, my name is Siobhan. I am the social media manager and community operations human here at Edge Studio. And it is my joy to introduce you to, if this is your first session at Ask Me Anything, I'm so happy that you are here. And if you haven't met him yet, this is our Chief Edge Officer, David Goldberg. David, how you doing?
I'm doing super well. Oh, I hit my mic, sorry. Especially knowing, as you reminded us, that it is almost spring. That is a terrific thing to hear. Yeah. Hey, everyone. Hello.
Hello, hello. And today we are privileged and humbled to have a guest star with us. I just got to meet her for the first time, and I'm calling it meeting still, even though it's on Zoom, because you know what? That's 2021. And now you all get to meet her too. She joins us from the UK, super duper special. Hello, Liz. How are you doing this evening for you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. It's an absolute joy to be here with you all.
Didn't I tell you all if you needed your fix, if you're like, I actually am an Anglophile and I just need to hear the dulcet tones of a British accent, like I'm so happy to provide that for you today. You know, which full services happening here. So so welcome everybody. The way this is gonna go, if it's your first time, welcome. If you are a seasoned person, welcome back. We like to keep it hopping in the chat, so introducing yourself, chatting to people, keeping conversation going. The chat is also your tool for asking questions to our lovely panel today. You can ask anything regarding voiceover. We're going to keep it in the voiceover world in the chat, and I will bring those questions over to Liz and also to David if you have something specifically for David as well. I cannot really unmute you. It's not that I don't want to hear your beautiful voices. It's just going to be Zoom chaos, and there's enough chaos, you know, that we don't need to create more chaos in this session here. So we are so that's how we'll go. We'll go with questions in the chat. I will try to get to everybody. If I don't get to you for some reason, shoot me a message on social media and be like, Siobhan, you missed me and I was sad. Can you ask me? Can you pick me next time? You know, I will take that to heart. I promise. So this is wonderful. Oh, and we do have Daniel, who is also joining us from the UK, specifically in London. So we're keeping it international and national, people from everywhere, which is what we love to see. Hello, Californians, here with you today. Yes. Okay. So let's begin. Liz, can you just give us a little bit of intro on you and what you do and how you got there? The people would love to know.
Sure. So my story goes back quite a long time now. I used to work for a local cable TV station near to where I live, and I did some voiceover work as part of my job there, but I'd actually never had any training in voiceover at that point. I used to voice things like adverts that went out on the channel, short documentaries we made, that kind of thing. And I left there to have my kids. My eldest is now 18 and at university, so that's how long ago it was. And it was my intention to go back. But while I was off with the baby, the business got sold and there was no job to go back to. So I ended up doing something completely different and working at a college, nothing to do with voiceover at all. And then at the end of 2011, my husband, who is in the chemical industry, was asked to go and work in Baltimore for a couple of years. So we moved out to Maryland, and he was going to work and the kids were going to school, and I was at a bit of a loose end. And so I went to college. I went to my local community college and I did acting and I did singing, which were two things that I'd always loved doing, but never had any kind of formal training in. And then I saw this course advertised that was called Acting for the Camera. And I thought, oh, it'd be fun to get back in front of a camera again. So I went along. It was an evening class. It took place at a high school not far from where we were living. And it was run by a local woman who was an actress, and she also did voiceover work. And only 4 people turned up for this course. So she said to us, tell me what you're interested in, and I will tailor the course to you. So I told her that I'd had a bit of experience of voiceover and I was interested in it, but I had no idea how to go about getting into it. And she said, oh, I can help you there. I do a bit of voiceover. And she put me in touch with a friend of hers who runs a studio. And he sometimes needs British accents for his work. So I did a couple of jobs for him. And she told me about some of the pay-to-play sites, and I signed up with a couple of those, and I started to get a bit of work. And I didn't even have a demo at this point. And I realized quite quickly I was only going to get more work and better paid work if I had a professionally produced demo. And I didn't know where I could get that done. So I started to do some research and I came across Edge Studio. And what I really liked about Edge was the fact that you guys won't just train anybody. You assess everyone first and you tell them what their voice is suited to and whether it's worth going through your training program. And I went along to do my initial voice, sort of vocal testing, whatever, at in DC. And I did their morning workshop, which I think was about 4 hours. And, we had a chance to be recorded and read different scripts and listen back and critique each other. And the following day, the trainer, Scott, got in touch with me and he said, I have a checklist of about 50 different things that I'm listening out for, mistakes people commonly make when they're starting out in voiceover. He said, I haven't checked any of them for you. So this is definitely something that suits you, and Edge would be happy to train you. So, so I signed up with Edge and I did all my initial training with you guys. Some of it in person with coaches in DC, some of it via Skype with coaches in other parts of the country, and made my first demos. And I did a commercial demo, a corporate demo, and an audiobook demo. And then I set up, I got my work permit and I started working as a voiceover artist in the States. And then when my husband's contract came to an end, we moved back to the UK, and I already had some clients by this time, so I was able to carry on. And at our house in Maryland, we had a walk-in closet, and that was my first recording studio. Moving back here, I didn't have that kind of luxury, and that's when I invested in the booth you can see behind me there, which I bought on eBay. And so came home in the summer of 2014 and basically carried on in voiceover. And I've kept in touch with David sporadically over that time and let him know how I've been doing. And that's led us to this moment when I've been invited here today to chat to you guys.
Liz is being very humble. She has done some unbelievable work. She has won so many awards, many awards. She has excelled in numerous genres in our voiceover industry. And on top of all of that, the rare occasions that she and I see each other at conferences and so on, or when we chat on Skype or something, she's just such a nice person and always so humble about her work. She is, but you're all in for a good hour because she's full of so much helpful information. And I really want you to think carefully about the questions that you posed today. Of course, I'm happy to answer any questions, as Siobhan said, but I would take this opportunity and think of some really good questions, things that will help you, because Liz probably has some really good answers. She's been there, done that, and she's terrific. So yeah, take advantage of this hour.
I love David here as the proud, teacher, former teacher, student,
yeah, seriously. You know what? This came up just a couple of days ago. I was coaching a really well-known voice actor, and they said, you were like so into this. And I said, well, like I've dedicated my life to helping people get into voiceover or professionals go further in their career. I don't know, work 12 hours, 18, 24 hours a day. I ask my family, like I'm always thinking about scripts for someone and techniques for someone. And so I mean, I've dedicated 32 years at this. And so when someone is successful, I feel great. It's like, I feel really, really good about it. Yeah. I mean, it's like, I feel great when my kids get a good grade on their test, and I feel great when a voice actor gets a good job. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm really excited. So I do get into it.
Well,
So
I was really excited to actually to work for Edge last year, for the first time. So it was great to be one of your students and then end up actually being one of your voiceover artists working for Edge. And let me let me just tell you about the session, because it was the most nightmarish session I've ever had, and it was because I have my IDPTL link. I'm connected. I'm chatting to the audio engineer. The client has come on the line, we're ready to start recording. There's suddenly this massive flash of lightning and all my power went off. And so they, of course, they disappeared and they had no idea what had happened to me, and I couldn't let them know. I ended up, I think, having to use my mobile phone to text and say, no, to send an email and say, I'm really sorry, but my power has gone down. And then the power came back, but the internet didn't. The internet stayed off for about half an hour, and so they were scrabbling around in New York trying to set up a phone patch, and they just got to the point where they're saying, okay, you can dial in, and then suddenly the internet came back and we were able to carry on with the session. But for about half an hour it was a bit of a nightmare.
there is nothing like the powerlessness feeling of losing your power. That is yep, that sounds incredibly, there would be so much panic in my chest if that
Yeah.
were
Oh
But
yeah.
may I say, but let me say this, and this is, I honestly, I think this is a lesson to everyone on the call. When we deal with voice actors, and Edge Studio hires a lot of voice actors, I mean, thousands every year, we really appreciate when a voice actor has technical difficulty. We appreciate the voice actor to be warm and happy, not about it, but okay with the situation, comfortable, I should say, with the situation, rather than having a voice actor start panicking. Because when the voice actor panics, we start thinking, oh goodness gracious, like now if the connection is ruptured, there's going to be tension in their voice. It just, it's not helpful to anyone. And when voice actors say, "Oh my goodness, like what horrible timing!" Like I feel terrible, with this, but a smile face at the same time. Like I'm doing all I can. I'll buy a lunch or something. Whatever they can do to make it seem okay and comfortable is so appreciated. It really is. Or maybe a better example, and what happens much more commonly, is that the voice actor connects, the microphone sounds crackly or something, and they say, geez, you think I know how to do this by now? Like, I'm so sorry. Hang on, guys. Let me see what I can do. Again, when the voice actor says, oh my goodness, I'm so scared. I don't know what to do. When they start panicking, then we panic because of the situation. So anytime there's technical difficulties or the script or whatever is going on, just be okay with it. And I would liken this to bloopers on TV. When you watch, funny bloopers about a TV show, usually the actors are laughing. They mess up the same line 5 times and they're actually giggling about it. And that actually makes it amusing and comforting to watch that, yeah, they're just regular humans. They make mistakes too, rather than an actor stressing and sweating and, whatever. So take it and realize it happens to everyone. And for every voice actor has a technical difficulty, so do we. It happens to us. Certainly it happens to us. Our power goes out, our wires crap out, and things happen, and you do what you can. Anyway, we can move on.
I had a session yesterday actually with an audio engineer who'd called in, and we were using clean feed, which was great. And partway through the session, there was suddenly this ping of an email coming in, and I'd forgotten to switch off my email program, and I swore and then started laughing. And I said, "Oh, I thought I'd turn that off." So I switched it off. And we carried on, and a bit later there was a ping, and he'd left his email on as well. And we both just laughed and said, well, what a pair of professionals we are.
Yeah, that's great. That's laugh it off, make sure you can fix it, but laugh it off.
Yeah.
That's the mark of a pro, honestly, guys. That's the mark of a pro. So Siobhan, lead us from here.
Yeah, let's get into it. And I was just gonna say, that's never happened to me, Liz. A phone call coming in or that's never happened. So, some of us kidding. Okay, so Tom, says, Liz, your website is awesome. And it is. I have stalked it as well. And it's quite comprehensive. So, what is your best advice for those of us creating a VO website of our own?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, but just first before, Stephen Blair said he signed up for acting courses at CCBC. That's where I went. I went to CCBC and I loved it there. Just get that in.
Community college in Baltimore. That's awesome. Okay, fantastic. Yeah.
So website. So the website that you're looking at is actually the third iteration of my website. So I started off with one that I made completely myself, which was okay, but it was never going to be found by anybody. The second one, I got a website designer to do it for me, but they were quite a cheap and cheerful website developer, and I didn't have that much control over it. So if I wanted to add something, if I wanted to add a blog to it, for example, I had to go back to them and pay them more money for them to add these things to my site. And it got to the point where I was wanting to add more logos from clients that I'd worked with. I was wanting to add testimonials, and I could kind of do it, but then everything kind of moved around and it didn't look very good. And so I got rid of that developer and I went to somewhere else. And yeah, I spent quite a lot of money on my website, although I did get a grant towards payment. I always look for a grant before I buy anything at all, and it's been surprising what I've been able to get money for. And so that's now my latest website, and I'm really happy with it. It's necessary to have at least a couple of your demos kind of front and center on your homepage. If you have a look at mine, I've got some demos on the front page, and then I have a separate demos page where I've got even more stuff as well. Really important, if you've got a body of work, to have links on to your work on the internet, so people can see what kind of things that you've done before. And a really good about page, so people can learn a bit about you. And then I've got my blog on there. I've now got my podcast on my website as well. So I'm kind of adding to it all the time. And I think it's important to keep your website fresh, because that's what Google likes. Even if it's just something like adding a new testimonial on there or adding a new client logo, just as long as you're putting something on there, probably at least once a month, then Google thinks, okay, somebody cares for this website, it's relevant, new information, I'm going to keep showing it to people. So that's my bit of advice about websites.
I love it. I think if people are needing inspiration, going to Liz's website is a great place to get website inspo. I also just want to applaud you for the blog. The blog is a cool thing that we haven't talked about too much in AMA as another tool for your website that can continue to drive traffic. So you can post on social media, new blog post. Mm-hmm. Check it out on my website, right? And it's just, as Liz is saying, just more reasons for people to go to it. And always trying to drive the traffic to your face. Well, actually your voice, but your face, as well. Yeah. So if David feels good about websites, I'm ready to keep going. You feel good, David?
Yeah, I very much like what Liz said. And I apologize. It looked like I was reaching for something. Liz, I have your pen. And I was going to grab your pen. But honestly, I realized my kids have it upstairs at the moment doing their work. One of my sons is still in remote school. They haven't opened up yet. And he's using your pen. So you talk about the blog getting some, press. You get press even within our home. The pen, it's a great pen. But, actually, there's a lesson. Here's another lesson. Sometimes you need to invest more into your business to get more out of it. And so, as Liz said, she invested more into her website and eventually got the right website, which ultimately, Liz, will probably save you money because you don't need to keep paying for changes to it because you can do the work on your own. Likewise, last time I saw Liz at 2008 at a conference in 2018, she was handing out her pens, her branded pens. And I have a pen from Liz. Thank you again. But the point here is that it's a really good quality pen. It's a very comfortable, good, great pen to use. So it is my go-to pen. Even if it wasn't Liz's, the fact that it has Liz's name is great because she's branding herself. So much so that now my son likes that pen both my sons do actually, but one has it, I'm sure, upstairs at his homework. So you spend more money. If you are branding yourself, the lesson is don't get a crappy ass pen that's just going to fall apart and spill ink on someone's shirt, because that's the last thing you ever want to do to someone, right? So get something good. Um, so there you go.
Yeah, I think you have got to spend money on your branding. So I mean, you guys can see my banner behind me, which is what I used to take to networking meetings when we could go and meet people in real life. That has been there for the last year now, and it just serves as my backdrop. But you know, I spent quite a lot of money on getting my logo right, on getting my professional photographs. But those photographs I have used in so many places. I mean, you'll see some of them on my website, but I've used them on social media, on all sorts of different platforms. You know, if I'm entering my work for an award or something, they always want photographs with it. I use those photographs. And I think that's, you know, having really good photography is a very worthwhile investment because you'll just get so much use out of it.
Now, don't panic if you're like, oh my gosh, this is all so expensive. The short answer is yes, that's true. But the long answer is that you can come up with a plan. You don't have to buy all the things all at
No.
once. You can slowly figure out, how you're going to make this happen. But as we do kind of say every session, I mean, I think about Tom a lot. I think about Tom a lot when he when he said that your time is more important than your money. And I think choosing to walk the path of voiceover, these are things we think about and what we spend money on that makes us look good, but also saves us from the pain of the labor of doing every little thing ourselves. Yeah, branding, really into branding conversations, actually. They're all super good. So,
Wait,
uh,
sorry, let me interject though. And to piggyback on what Siobhan is saying, that you don't need to spend all of that money up front. That's very true. And also, it depends on how you market yourself, right, everyone? Because if you are marketing yourself only on the online casting sites, you don't need necessarily pens and like promo material to hang in conferences. You only do that if you're attending conferences. So you need to think about how you're branding yourself. And as Siobhan said, build it up slowly. Maybe you do the online casting sites for the first number of years as listed. And at some point, you start getting local clients, and maybe you start going to some local conferences, the Better Business Bureau conference, whatever it might be, some local conferences. And well, then you get a poster of yourself and some pens. So take it in slowly. Don't try to do, I would strongly encourage everyone to not do everything at once. Take it
But
slowly,
I think
step by step.
it also takes a while to work out who you are. You know,
Yes.
what your voice brand is, what your personal brand is. I mean, I'm 8 years into my voiceover journey now, and I certainly didn't do all this straight away. And you know, my branding has changed a bit over time. And when you start out, you don't know what kind of work is going to suit you best, or what kind of clients are going to come your way. And so it just take a bit of time before you would be ready to invest in the kind of things that I have behind me here, because you know you need to be a little further along your journey, I think.
Right.
may we all have goals of posters of ourselves, just that exist. Billboards, actually, billboards, I think is the is the thing. Gosh, when you're a New Yorker and you're like, look at my ex-boyfriend's Netflix show. He's successful. Okay, so from Roxana. What okay, so Liz, Roxana is asking, do you have the 50 mistakes list? I don't know what that means, but 50 is a really big number. But we're also asking, what were the main mistakes that you avoided, or that maybe you wish you had avoided, or some mistakes that we might want to learn about from you?
Yeah. Okay. So the 50 mistakes list, I don't have it. I never saw it. This was just what the tutor said to me. But in terms of mistakes that maybe I made that you might want to avoid, I wish I had from the start a better system of keeping track of clients. So I started out with just a spreadsheet, which was okay, but it would have been easier had I started with a CRM from the beginning, which is a customer relationship management tool. In case you're not familiar with CRM. I eventually moved on to something called HubSpot, which you can, there is a free version of that. I'm now using something called 17 Hats, which suits me much better. But you know, at every stage, it's been a case of take the information, get it in the right state to move it into the next CRM. I just wish I'd got it right from the start, you know. Maybe nobody gets that right from the start, but you know, having some way of keeping track of all your clients, and building up a mailing list as well, because I didn't do that from the start either. And it's a bit different for you guys. We have something called GDPR over here, which is all about data protection, and it's quite strict. So unless somebody has kind of given you permission to put them onto your mailing list, you can't just add anyone to your mailing list. So it's kind of tricky to get people onto mailing lists. You've got to go through hoops to get them to sign up. So I kind of wish I'd started doing that sooner, because I would have a much bigger mailing list than I currently do.
This is awesome. So let's just for the sake of this piece of information, which is wonderful and something that I certainly haven't thought about. So, what do you do? What is it? What does it mean to manage your clients? Like, let's pretend you like I don't have. What do you? How does one manage? Why does one manage clients? What do you do with this list of clients? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I have a couple of things that I do. So if I am reaching out to somebody for the first time, I will record their details in my CRM. And I won't just send them the initial email, I will schedule some follow-ups as well. Because if you send a single email out, it's not very likely someone's going to respond. And I'm sure you find this yourself. You'll get an email and you think, oh, that's interesting. I must do something with that. I'll respond to them later. And you don't, and then it gets buried under a million other emails that come in and you forget all about it. But if that person emails you again a month later, it jogs your memory and you'll think, oh yeah, I did want to get in touch with that person. And maybe at that point you'll get in touch, or maybe it'll be the month after or the month after. So I have a whole series of emails that I schedule at the same time when I initially reach out to somebody. And then the other thing that I have is people that have agreed to be on my mailing list. I keep in touch with them. And I was talking to somebody towards the end of last year, and she has created this whole system that she uses for keeping in touch with her her mailing list. And it's reaching out to them a couple of times a month, but just with not ever salesy, but interesting things about the industry. So one of them that I sent out was a little video of the inside of my booth, because people are always interested in that kind of thing. The one I sent out earlier this week was about how to find out pronunciation of difficult words. I use something called forvo.com. I don't think you guys have come across Forvo. It's very useful. And so just useful bits and pieces that people might be interested in. And it just kind of keeps you top of mind. So when they do eventually need your services, they'll hopefully remember you and reach out to you. So it's just kind of keeping in touch with people, but not to try and sell them anything, because nobody ever likes to be sold to.
But I,
So let me say that in our production department, we do that also. We have a CRM. We use Salesforce, just another CRM. But what I would encourage everyone to do is to really think about how you will market. So, for example, if you think one day you might want to market to audiobook production companies, well, every time you get a client and they give you an audiobook project, then somewhere in your CRM, note that it's an audiobook project. Because then one day when you start to market to that genre, you might be able to say, you might be able to pull up in your CRM all of the audiobooks that you have recorded. Or if you need testimonials from audiobook clients, then you can quickly see who you've worked for in past and reach out to just that one group and get testimonials from just that one group. Like, it's amazing what you can do. You can also record birthdays or important information for clients. And then you can, if you're really whining and dining a client, so to speak, then you can reach out to them on their birthday and say, hey, I remember you said it's your birthday. I think you said on March 18th, and today's March 18th. So happy birthday. And little things like that go a very long way with respect to getting work and keeping clients really happy. So yeah, think ahead. I love what Liz said. You know, she wished she thought about some of these things when she began, as I do too, when I began Edge Studio 32 years ago. And so learn from our mistakes, from our 50 mistakes. I don't think Liz has 50 mistakes. I have about 50,000 mistakes I've made along the years. And as the company grows, there's still mistakes being made, and we keep trying to fix them. And but learn from our mistakes, you know. So think ahead how you will market yourself and use that CRM to your advantage, because one day down the road you'll be super happy about it.
I,
Oh, and
I
another big mistake a lot of voice actors don't make when they begin is they don't get copies of the work that they have recorded. I'll tell you right now, every time you have a project, try to get a copy of the work from the client, try to download the logo of the client, try to get a testimonial from the client. You will thank yourself at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, golden jewels today, this morning over here in LA for me. I also just want to say I love this conversation. Dina was like, yes, CRMs, like really getting into it in the chat. So if people use other CRM platforms that they want to drop in the chat, something that they like, just for variety's sake. I also just want to point out that when you're like, oh, organizing all my clients, and you and new folks might be like, oh, well, I don't have any clients. But a lot of what Liz is talking about is just the pitches and reaching out. So these are just people that you're emailing to get work. It's there. That's it. So this is great. This is a great tool to empower you and to simplify the experience and to make you suffer less as you are doing all of these cold blasts, but to organize yourself for just getting clients. I love it. Super duper helpful. Okay, I do have Al asking Liz, what are the most important trends that are affecting the voiceover industry right now that an aspiring voiceover professional should be mindful of going forward? Do you feel like
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So in terms of commercials at the moment, I think it's probably similar for you guys as it is here. The trend at the moment is for things to be very natural and very conversational, rather than the kind of announcer salesy person that maybe it was a few years ago. Something else that I've noticed being asked for a lot more is people who can do character work. And that doesn't necessarily mean accents or funny voices, because we're all characters, aren't we, at the end of the day? So even within something like e-learning, you might get asked to play the role of an HR manager, for example, or a nurse or a doctor if it's something for the medical healthcare profession. And so I've been talking to one of my agents, an agent in Sweden actually, and he was saying to me, have you got a character reel? And actually I haven't at the moment. I've just started, I've just reached out to a production company today to do that for me. So I'm going to be working on that very soon, because he was saying, we'd really love to add a character demo to what we've got from you, because people were being asked more and more for that as a demo. So that's definitely something to look into. And I think another reason for getting eventually, maybe not straight away, but eventually getting a character demo, is that I think there's a bit of a threat at the moment from AI voices, who, I've attended talks where people have said, they're going to take over things like voicemail, maybe like the e-learning, that kind of thing. But they're probably not so likely to take over things that are involving characters, so gaming, animation, that sort of thing. So I think it's good to have as many strings to your bow as you can, so that you can work across different genres. But yeah, definitely I'm being asked more for character voices. Another thing that I've been not necessarily asked for, but I decided I was going to make last year, was a dedicated e-learning demo. Because with, of course, the pandemic, so much more learning has moved online. E-learning was a growing field anyway, but I think it's accelerated over the last year. And I thought, it's probably a good idea to have a dedicated e-learning demo that I can send out to e-learning companies. And that has actually worked pretty well for me. So that's something else to think about working towards.
I have a couple of comments, again, piggybacking on Liz. So in terms of Liz needing a character demo, this is another terrific reason of using a CRM, everyone, because Liz might say, you know what, I want to put together a character demo. And I feel like over the 8 years, I've done some number of jobs here and there, but I don't really remember what they are. But if they're categorized or organized in some fashion in a CRM, she can just search by the word character in her CRM and say, oh yeah, here are the 13 things I've done. And there should be a file attached to them, and so she has copies of all of that stuff. And I mean, it's that much easier to put together a demo. The other reason I think that there is more character work these days is because companies are looking to save money wherever they can. And so, more than ever before, companies are saying, could you do two voices for us so we don't need to hire two different voice actors? And sure, they will pay you more to do two voices, but still, usually when they pay you one voice actor to do two voices, it's less expensive than paying two different voice actors to each do one voice. I hope that math makes sense to everyone. And so, this is happening more frequently. So, yeah, if you can pull off some characters, that's great. Just sort of helpful. But it should be noted that if you don't do character work, that's fine because there is so much work out there just in e-learning alone or corporate work alone that you're totally fine. It can be unbelievably successful even if you don't touch character work.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Um, awesome. I love all this. I also meant to say at the top of the sesh that, and I'll put it again at the end of this, but Liz is teaching a class with us called Networking for Voice Actors, another important theme of all the amazing things she's a master of. And I'm just dropping the link right there so that you have it now before before we have to go. But so, okay, so we're talking about clients. Okay, here we go. And from Anne Marie. Liz, how much acting training do you recommend for people who don't have an acting background? And where are the best places to get acting training?
Yeah,
Broadcast.
that's interesting. So, the acting training that I've had was so before we moved to America, I would say I hadn't had any acting training. I belonged to a community theatre, and I'd done quite a lot of acting, but I hadn't ever had any formal training in it. So it wasn't really till I went to CCBC, and I did acting 111 and 112, and that has been pretty much my acting training. I've done the odd workshop here and there with various trainers on. So I did one with Scott Parkin a little while ago on improvisation, which was just hilarious. That's just the best fun ever. And I've done one with can't remember who it was, but that was about acting for video games. So I've done, a few hours here and there, but I haven't had masses of acting training. I've got quite a lot of experience of acting on stage, but in terms of the acting training, acting 111 and 112 is really what I've got in terms of qualifications.
And keep in mind, everyone, that voiceover is much more closely related to on camera acting than stage acting. So if you decide to take acting lessons and you're not sure what type to take, I would do two things. I would focus more on camera acting and make sure your instructor understands that you're there for voiceover, or try to find an on camera acting instructor who does understand what voiceover is. Because some stage acting classes will teach you how to project your voice, which is not what you want. They'll teach you how to be overly theatrical, which is generally not what you want, unless you're looking to get into character work or animation work, and then it might make sense. So, time and place for everything. But do think about the kind of acting classes that you take.
And again, just to reiterate, Liz took these classes at community college. I whenever one of the things I like to say out loud to people often is my training at the Joffrey prepared me for this experience of being the graceful human that I am, which is a joke because you can get your education. You don't have to have acting classes from Royal Shakespeare or however wherever. You can there's so much to learn from so many institutions that have a lot to offer, that is not the biggest and most fanciest people. So I think that's really good insight. And I love David's reminders of like, I think an improv class is helpful because it does help you think on your feet and work with others. But yeah, thinking about that camera, which gives me anxiety, but what doesn't really? Okay, so I'm curious about this too. This is from, I think it's Gwelda. What a cool name. And then there's some echoing, and I wanted to follow up with you on this. So thanks, team, for getting me and making sure I do. My fear for most of us are probably Americans. So my fear is that this is going to be super British centric, but for my Brits, this might be great. Liz, talk to us about the grants. What's going on? What do you get? How do you get it? When did you get it? How can I get it? Let's go.
Grants. Okay, I've done a whole webinar about searching for grants actually. It stems back to when I was a student. I did a PhD in archaeological science, and I needed to go to Scandinavia to collect samples for my work. I was looking at things like tars and resins that were used as waterproofing agents and glues during the Middle Stone Age. And they've only survived in really boggy sites in Scandinavia. And as a student, I couldn't afford to go to Scandinavia. So I decided to see if I could get some money from somewhere. And back then, there used to be this massive book in the university library full of all the different grants that you could apply for. And I just went through it and found all the different ones that were relevant to me. And I applied to them all. And as far as I remember, I was successful in every case. So I got enough money for a 3-week trip to Scandinavia. So that was my flight, that was my traveling around while I was there. It was all my accommodation, it was all my food. I had a great time, to be honest. And so ever since then, I've kind of had a mindset that if I need to do something, I'm going to see if I can get some money for it. And I've helped like my kids' school get money for things, preschool. I was the chairman of their preschool for a while. I got money to refurbish their playground, to get the place decorated, to get craft materials for the kids. I've had money for my theatre group. Just got a grant actually last week to replace our sound desk because that blew up recently. I got money for lighting, all kinds of things. I don't know whether you can see behind me, one of the grants I've had recently was to buy some camera equipment. So I have a teleprompter and a camera and lights and a lavalier microphone to allow me to make decent quality videos. And I got a grant for that. So yeah, I don't know where you look in the States. I know where to look in the UK, and it's often through the local authorities. So that might be at county level for you guys. That's kind of how it is here. And each county or region has grants that are particular to that area. And at the moment, there's quite a lot of money around to help businesses recover from COVID and from work slowing down or places having to shut, and which is where the grant for my camera equipment came from. So I can't tell you guys specifically where to look because I don't know how it works in the States, but there probably is some money out there. That's probably not very helpful, but
Yeah, my fear is that there's more funding for arts stuff in the UK than there is in the
well,
US.
this was actually for business rather than for arts. There is specific arts funding here, but that is really difficult to get hold of. The Arts Council are notoriously hard to get money from, but so you're better off looking for money for small businesses. Particularly when you're first starting up, there are grants that are specific for businesses that are less than 3 years old, because the government wants to encourage entrepreneurism and more people to go into building their own businesses. So yeah, definitely worth checking out anyway.
There are a lot in the States also, a whole lot. And there are some, as you two discussed, just for the arts, but also a lot for small business, a lot for entrepreneurs. All of you on this call are entrepreneurs. You're starting or running your voiceover business. And look through your local government, state government, and the national government. And there are just so many programs out there. Just Google search it, like business programs, funding, business funding through the state. Google it, whatever you want, and I think you'll find that there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah. So as well as this equipment that I showed you, I also got like a complete mobile studio setup that I got a grant for. Well, the grant paid for half of it, which made it affordable. So I got a vocal booth to go. I got another microphone stand, pop shield, MacBook computer, headphones, the whole works to take with me when I travel. And now all that kind of stuff is now my backup. If my mic fails, I have a Neumann TLM 103 in there. If that fails, I have a backup microphone because I can take it from my travel kit. So that was well worthwhile.
Wow. Okay. So going back to the website discussion from Arturo, if you don't have experience or a body of work, maybe you're a new person. I'm gonna kind of combine some questions because like maybe you're a new person who has their demo, but you don't have examples of jobs you've booked, should you still have a website?
I didn't have a website straight away. I certainly didn't have a website when I was training with you guys. I set that up when I got home. So I was probably a year or so in when I set up my first website. And I didn't have a great deal to put on it at first, apart from my demos. I mean, the demos is your most important thing probably anyway. You know, that's your kind of calling card that shows what you can do. But if you can do, you can maybe find some free work to do for maybe a local charity, reading books for the blind, you're talking newspapers for the blind, anything like that would be great. And and say, I'll do this for free, but what I want in return from you guys is a testimonial, because that's really powerful. You want to get some of that on your website, because everybody likes social proof. And then once you've got a testimonial, you can use it on your website, you can use it on your social media, and that will bring more people to you. Yeah, I was talking about this to a guy the other day in the UK who's very new to voiceover, and he was saying exactly that. I haven't got anything yet, but he'd got a niece, I think, who's a videographer, and she was saying, well, I can maybe try you out on one of my projects. And so, he would do that for nothing because she's his niece, but she would give him a testimonial in return. So, see if you can find any opportunities like that. Charities are a good bet, because they haven't got the money for a professional voiceover artist very often, but offer to do it for very little or for nothing in return for testimonial.
Yeah, that is a great way to drum up work. When I began Edge Studio back in the, I don't know, my college dorm days, a long time ago, many decades ago, it was all music. And it was only in, I think, 2000 or so, 2001, that the company really switched over to providing exclusively voiceover. And that's a whole nother story why that switch happened. But when I switched over to voiceover, we had no clients also. I mean, a couple here and there, but and Edge Studio began offering, exactly as Liz said, free work to charities, to local organizations, and it is astounding how quickly people will gobble up free work. You offer that, and I mean, there's a good chance that you end up narrating something. And on my end, it was different. It was not as good. My opportunity was not as good as your opportunity, because you guys can go and contact a local organization or a charity and give them the voiceover files. I was able to do that, but I still needed to pay a voice actor because I'm not a voice actor. I could do the recording, the engineering, the mixing, all of that stuff, but I still needed to shell out some money. But it was an investment the way I saw it. You can even do the voice acting part. So you have, other than your time, you have no investment into that. And it's great. And you can quickly get some work. But to the gentleman who asked that question about what to put on your website, if you have recorded a demo, I assume you've taken some training, you've taken some classes. And so I'll repeat something I've said on some previous Ask Me Anything videos, or whatever we call this, webinars. Um, you've done a lot. You've done a lot of training. You've done a lot of coaching. You've worked with various experts in the industry, and you've trained yourself to the point that you can comfortably record the quality that is on your demo. And feel confident about that, and let people know your background, your history, or your experience, and speak positively and comfortably about it. And if you're eloquent in your writing, in your prose, then you can do a really good job and make your website sound like you're really good.
Yeah, and lastly, I've advised students at Edge before to get a testimonial from their coach. To say, like, my coach at Edge Studio wrote a lovely sentence about me, that shows I'm good to work with and that I have talent. So that's a thing you can do. From Carol, my friend in Greenwich. Hey, Carol. She is also a British person living in the US, and she is wondering about, Liz, if you did anything to source work specifically as a British person in the US. Like, was there a funnel of money that came from that?
So when I started out, I was very much using the pay-to-play sites, and as you know, that there's work for British Voices on those sites. That's kind of where my first clients came from. Apart from the guy who I mentioned, who my tutor had introduced me to, who runs a recording studio and sometimes needs British Voices. But I'm in touch with some other Brits who are still in America now, and they're finding that actually most of their work still comes from the UK. So yes, of course, sometimes an American company will want a Brit because they, you Americans love our British accent, I know. But most of the time, they're still going to hire Americans for the American market. So you're kind of limited. So I do think you probably need to still be looking for work back over this side of the pond. But the nice thing now, of course, is with the internet, it really doesn't matter where you're based and you can work for anybody anywhere. I still work for that guy that I did that initial work for over in Maryland. He still sends work my way, even though we're no longer in the same, even on the same continent anymore, because, it just doesn't matter. So, don't restrict yourself to looking for work just in the US, look in the UK, look globally. This is a global industry now.
I love it, and I'm just loving the Maryland and Baltimore love. So from
Yay.
Emma, from Emma, I know we're talking about, this is a question we always have. Like, made my demo, don't know, like, what are my next steps? But she's also asking specifically for you, Liz. Um, do you have an agent? Do the people in the room today, do we need agents? What's your take?
No, not necessarily, I don't think. When I started out, I used to think, having an agent is like the be all and end all. And when I've got an agent, I'll know that I've made it. I don't get very much work from agents at the end of the day. So I do have agents now. I didn't until I was several years in. I now I'm with Impressive Talent in Maryland. So they're my main US agents. I have a couple of agents in the UK, and quite often they're sending me the same auditions that my American agent has sent me the night before. So that's not terribly helpful. But actually, I've just spoken to a new agent today because I was talking to another voiceover colleague last week, and he mentioned his agent and that he booked a lot of work with her. And I was like, who's your agent? So I reached out to her and said, this guy's recommended you to me and said you're a great agent. And she wrote back, and she'd obviously been on my website, and she says, well, you've done loads of work. How come you haven't had an agent up to now? And I wrote back and said, well, I have had an agent. I just haven't had a good agent. So we had a telephone conversation today, and she's taking me on. I'm waiting for the paperwork to come through the post. So we'll see how that relationship goes. But to date, I've had very little work from an agent. So, 99.9% of my work I have sourced myself. And I don't think that you need an agent these days. The other thing is that I'm a long way from London. And a lot of the sort of big voiceover agencies are very London centric and would expect you to come into London to record. I mean, the agent I spoke to today, she said, you're going to have to come to London, and that's fine as long as I've got a bit of notice. But some of the really big agencies, they like you to be able to get there at the drop of a hat. They get a job come in, they want you in the studio half an hour later. I cannot possibly do that. I'm too far away. So I'm never going to get taken on by those really big boys. I think it's possibly a little different in the States because you're such a vast country anyway. Nobody would perhaps expect you to be able to be in New York within half an hour or LA within half an hour. It's unreasonable. But here it's still very much the big agents like you to be in their studio. They're not so fond of people with home studios, even though that's broadcast quality. That's just seems to be the way that it is here. So I've had no option but to source my own work. And I do know of voiceover artists who live in the London area, and all they do is work for agencies in the Soho studios. But when, of course, the pandemic hit and the studios had to close down for a while, they suddenly found themselves with no work, and they were scrabbling around to set up at home. So, home studio is really important, guys. Get that as good as you possibly can.
It's interesting because in the States, most agents work, they request voice actors to audition from their home studios and not come in anymore. So that is quite different.
Yeah, I mean, auditioning, yes, from home, but for actual recording of the work, they want you in Soho.
I have one more question I want to try to get to, and it's from Bill. And I love this question, and it actually hasn't come up. I know my good friend Johnny Heller has strong opinions about this and like makes videos about it because he's funny. But Bill is asking, Liz, are there any thoughts on sitting versus standing when doing voiceover? Uh,
It is,
I
yeah.
yeah. So he stands, but he knows that many folks sit. What are your thoughts on this? And Bill grew up near Baltimore, so I just wanted
Cool.
to.
So it depends completely what you're doing. So the setup I have in there, I have my microphone set at a height where I can stand at it, but it's also the same height when I'm sitting on a bar stool. So I have like a bar stool in there. So if I'm doing if something short, a commercial, then generally I'll stand. Long form narration, I want to be sitting down. I don't want to be I'm standing up for like 30 pages of an e-learning narration. That's not going to happen. So yeah, either or. I think as long as you're sitting very upright, so you're not squidging your diaphragm down, I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I will tell you that some people sound the same whether they stand or sit. And there are some voice actors who actually sound a bit different when they stand or sit. And if you are one of those people who do sound different, then make sure you begin a program or a project in such a way that you can complete it in the same manner. Because you don't want to be standing and halfway through you realize, oh, my back's hurting, and then you sit down and then it sounds different. Also, along with that, if you go from a sitting to a standing position, make sure you adjust the angle of the music stand, because there's some voice actors who don't adjust it, and we can hear when we can hear as an engineer, we can hear when a voice actor is reading off of a music stand that's very vertical rather than being flatter. Because as the voice actor reads down either a printed piece of paper or down an iPad, their voice is up like this when they're at the top of the page, and then they're looking down at the bottom of the page. It changes the quality of their voice, and it changes their positioning of their voice to the microphone relative to the microphone. So the quality really changes, and it's a gradual change on the way down the page. And all of a sudden, it's like they're back at the top of another page, and it sounds different. So just adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's Johnny's advice too, is whatever you choose is going to be what you're doing for
Yeah,
that project.
yeah.
Like David said, you have
And
to.
make sure your stool is absolutely silent. Nothing with like vinyl coating or something that might crackle if you move a bit. Make sure if you're standing, don't wear loud heels or something like that. Like might make noise. I'm not sure if you can hear this, but just make sure you're quiet in general. Like I'm at a standing desk right now. I stand almost always, but just whatever you do, just make sure it's silent.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, Johnny's like, I can't understand audiobook narrators who stand. Like I don't get it. He's got this whole thing. So if you're an audiobook narrator who stands, good for you, because you have stamina that many of us don't. This has been so dynamic, and you all are so beautiful and smart and fun. And it's like already 1:58, and I don't know how that happened, but there's so many great questions in the chat, and you can't even get across the street in LA in half an hour. You guys are funny. So there were some questions. We currently don't offer acting workshops, specific acting workshops at Edge, but we do offer character workshops every so often for animation and video games. And one John asked, and I just thought I would say to
Wait, wait,
every.
wait, wait, wait. But we also, Siobhan, we also have Jay Snyder and Kara Edwards,
Oh
right?
yes, for coaching, for private coaching, yes.
Right, for
We-
acting,
we-
for character work and animation work.
Yes, good point. Forgive me, actually. Yeah, my brother is currently training with Jay Snyder, who we just call
Oh,
Yugi.
cool.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, you talking to Yugi today? He's like, yeah, I heard your voice on the phone. So if you wanted to take Liz's class or any class at Edge that you are not available for, you can still purchase the class and you will receive a recording of. So if you're like, I just want the information, I don't need to be there, we send you the recordings, so you can do that and should feel free. And that brings me to all the things that we do here. We have an investigate voiceover class. It is for new folks. Liz took this class, and this is what got her started. This is the class where we talk to you, give you an evaluation, and we help you get involved in our program based on what we believe your strengths are. And there's a code for 10% off of that if you want to do it. If you remember our sweet Nicole, she, of course you do, because she's the queen. Her class is tonight, and in fact, this is an acting workshop in and of itself. It's script interpretation, and it is coming from her performance background. So you'll get into a little Stanislavski, a little bit of like old school acting technique approach to getting really comfortable and confident with your scripts. If you don't want to take that class tonight because you're stressed about taxes, we do have tax time at the same time. That's happening tonight with Tom Deere. Tom will, he'll be serious with you because he's firm, but he'll also make you laugh. God bless that man. As well, again, with Liz, my caps lock here. Liz's class is on the 28th. And it's networking, and that's a great thing to understand because that is a huge chunk of your money funnel. So let's get in on that. I'm super excited about that course. And then, of course, because you have been with us today, we've got our code, which is just AMA. It is for 25 off of coaching with any of our coaches here at Edge Studio. And with David, this is the direct link. You can also train with David for his session, for his private coaching at that link there. So these are our what's going on with us right now. And hey, I'm just super happy to have you all here. There are questions about would improv. I can't take more in-depth questions because I want to let you all go because I've gone over. But if you just want to drop some love in the chat, it was really great to see you all. I miss you when we don't hang out. And I appreciate, yes, thank you. And if you want to just shout some love to Liz, who donated her time to us today and is just here just because she's cool. And we just appreciate you, Liz. Any closing remarks, David? I know we got to go.
Yeah,
Good?
no, I'll make it quick. Thank you, everyone. I say it every session. You guys rock, dedicated in being here. Siobhan, you rock as always. And Liz, it was great seeing you. And thanks so much for joining us.
My
Liz,
absolute pleasure.
And I hope this was helpful for everyone.
we super hope it was helpful. Liz, you're a pleasure. Any closing remarks on your end?
Just if anyone would like to get in touch with me, you can find my details on my website. I'm happy to answer any other questions anybody's got. So feel free to get in touch.
What was I gonna say? That is fabulous. You guys are all fabulous. We will be back. That's what I was gonna say. Our next Ask Me Anything session will be 2 weeks from now. Oh my gosh, it's on April 1st. So spend April Fool's Day with your fave. Fool herself a fool I am often. So join me and David. It'll just be the two of us and all of you on April 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern. This will be posted on YouTube, so you can follow us on YouTube. You can also follow us on socials, and that's where I will post it as well. And you all are totally wonderful. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are great. Great to see you. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon, evening, morning. Take care. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you,
You're
Siobhan.
welcome. Bye.